Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Express. Well, this is a new week and a new episode on what is becoming everyone's favorite talk show. You'll agree with me that it is encouraging, exciting, profound, real, energizing, sensible, and sensitive. This is what Express is all about, and much more. So, without any further delay, please help me welcome back to the stage the beautiful, expressive, talented, and savvy director of Express. She's called Carolyn. Carolyn, take it away.
Well, we're back. We're back today, Tuesday. Welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Um, Ferguson, Sonny and Pam. What a couple. What a couple. All right. So they're going to continue their story. For those who are just looking on this episode, I would advise you or recommend that you go back to listen to episode 8. I hope I've got that correct. So that you really can understand the continuation of the story. Okay, go ahead. So you were in the hospital, you went to see you in the hospital, then you got married, yes? And let's talk about married life now.
Well, I think when we left off, I was actually telling you about our first date, and this is
Oh,
this
yes,
is
yes, 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 yes.
this is important because I remember when we went to our first date. Um, I remember we our conversation on the date was that neither one of us had time to be playing around, right? And we came up with this phrase that we started saying. Well, I did initially that it had to be 40 years plus, and we jokingly were talking about divorce is not an option and all that stuff, and so we catapult forward to all the struggles with my hand situation, all the struggles with my, I would say, now that I understand what it is, emotional instability. And here you have this amazing woman just fighting through, fighting through. We finally get married in 2016, and things are improving. They're not where we both know that they should or could be, but we're moving in the direction that I think as a couple we wanted to head there. And then we get our second gift. And I say it's a gift, which most people always look at me, you know, crazy when I say that. But you'll hear why I say it's a gift. I went to work, and then but I hadn't been feeling well at all throughout the day. I went to work. I remember I was operating a piece of machinery, and then the next thing I know, I wake up in an ambulance on the way to the emergency room. They're telling me that I just had a seizure. It's like a seizure. I couldn't understand it, but and I was in denial too. Well, apparently I had stepped off of the machine. I called one of my coworkers, and I just collapsed, had a seizure, etc., etc. A few days later, Pam and I at home, and we were arguing about something. I don't even remember what the argument was about, but I do remember we're arguing. She leaves the room, and the next thing I know, I come to again, and she's crying, and there's EMT people in our house, and she's telling me that I just had another seizure. And then from that day onwards, I started having multiple seizures every day. And we were like, man, what is happening here? So ultimately, I was diagnosed with epilepsy, and the thing that was hard about this was finding out that the reason I developed epilepsy was as a result of that brain injury that I had suffered all those years before,
Mhm.
that had gone untreated, that had gone unattended to, that was ignored. And again, I'm not here to bash on the military. I think serving this country has been one of the greatest things I could ever do. But this is the price that I'm paying. So I get diagnosed with epilepsy. But with that now comes these intense bouts of depression, a sense of anxiety. I start I'm having nightmares. Pam could tell you there were nights where um, in my sleep, I guess I'd be having nightmares and it would trigger seizures in my sleep.
Mm.
Uh, and it was horrible. And the worst thing for me was I know how to provide evidence to the VA. And I remember asking Pam to record one of my seizures, which wasn't easy to do because I'm on the ground having a seizure and she has to record this as evidence,
Mm.
video evidence to send to them. And I remember watching that video. It took me a while to watch the video. And I remember asking her, like, how are you doing this? Because when I saw what was actually happening to me, because I'm not aware of it, having these seizures, I'm like, man, there's just no way, And I mean, we're this is the time where we're married, we're making some decisions, we're putting some plans in place to get to that next level with our business, or and so on, and then this happens. So here we go again. I lose this job that I was in because of the seizures. Because for one, when you start having seizures, you're not allowed to operate heavy machinery. You're not even allowed to drive,
Mhm.
right? And and the breaking point for me was when my lowest point was when I don't know if Pam remembers this when I told her because we were in a network marketing company and but I told her I didn't want to I didn't want to do it anymore because I didn't want to be in front of the room anymore. And I still remember her ex. She didn't say anything, but I remember the facial expression. It's like if your child was to come and tell you that something they love, they don't enjoy it anymore. As a parent, there's this kind of a sense of loss, but also a sense of heartbreak. And I don't know if this is what happened for her, but I think for me, it looked as if like I had just told her that the one thing that was really that I was good at, that I had been using to empower people was the one thing I didn't want to do anymore. I didn't want to speak. I didn't want to be in front of the room. I didn't want to do any of that because there was always this overwhelming fear that I would have a seizure in the room
For everyone.
or something would happen.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I had made the decision that I was going to commit suicide. Like that's how low I had gotten.
Wow.
And I mean, I had the plans and everything. And then a series of events took place. I got a phone call from a friend about some products. The kids called. All this stuff happened, and you know, as
Let's let,
we,
let me back up to the suicide part.
yeah,
Because you see, there's a lot of people out there who might be listening, and a lot of people have been through this. The thoughts, the plan, right?
yes,
Obviously, you didn't do it, thank God. But tell us a little bit more than that. If I hope I'm not going to be sort of like going too deep for you, but
no,
just
no, no, no.
explain. You said you had the thoughts, you had the plans. What aborted that?
Well, let me share why I got to that point.
Yes.
I remember sitting. I was at home. I was on the couch just watching TV, and I'd had a seizure, a couple seizures, and I remember Pam, kind of keeping an eye on me. Even my mother-in-law, she was around, and and I know, uh, her being an older woman and me having seizures and her having to try to help Pam to move me if I'm on the ground or stuff like that. I started feeling like a burden. I was like, man,
Mm.
I can't work. I can't even financially provide what I need to for my kids. Uh, I'm sick. This is the conversation I'm having with
With
myself,
yourself, yes.
and like I'm just a weight on my wife's life, for my kids, all this, and I'm like, man, they don't deserve to have to deal with this. I don't really need to be here anymore. And I even thought, man, it will hurt, but the hurt of me. being dead for me would be temporary compared to what they have to deal with every single day with me having these seizures, right?
Mm.
That torture.
That's what you was trying to get yourself together to think, to make
Yeah,
it
that's
for you to do
yeah,
it.
that was the feasibility that I was giving myself of why I didn't need to be here anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and on top of that too, I was on 5 different medications that they were giving me. Each time they would give me another, they would add one, they would adjust the dosage. I was still having seizures. I mean, more and more seizures. The other thing that was happening was that not only was I still having seizures, some of the side effects of the medicines that they had me on was contributing to the suicidal thoughts. There was one of them. One of the side effects is a medication called Aptium. One of the side effects for that thing is hallucination. One of
Mm.
the other side effects is chest pains. Well, those chest pains were actually one of the things that was triggering the seizures. So I'm like, well, they're giving me this medication to stop the seizures, but one of the side effects is causing me to have even more seizures.
Mm.
And I was done. I was, you know what? There's no reason for me to be here, putting my wife and kids through that. And funny enough, I had the sleeping pills and everything ready. And around 11 o'clock that the morning, a friend of ours who's also in network marketing, and we still work with him to this day, he called me and he said, man, I've got this project, but I also got these products that now at the time he didn't know he didn't know the extent of what was happening to me. But one of their products was, he was like, I believe it will help you out. Um, and I said, okay. I mean, at this point, I've tried everything, so I have
Mm.
nothing to lose. Then I get off the phone with him. I tell her. She says, "Yeah, let's give it a shot."
But did she know
And
that you had those thoughts?
no, she didn't know.
No
Pam,
idea.
no, this was September. Pam didn't find this out till what? No, December? Yeah, I think it was December. We were at an event um, when I finally admitted and shared this. Um,
One moment again. So going back to Pam, keep your thought, I'll remember. So you
yeah.
saw nothing like depression, nothing that would give you that idea, Pam, that he was going through all of this, or were you thinking, oh,
Well, I had never seen depression. So all I knew was what we used to do. And for those that followed us over the years, you can literally go back. If you think about it, we used to go live all the time on Facebook.
mm-hmm,
And if you think about it, there's a long span where we didn't go live together anymore. And during that period was when I started to notice that when we would do events or we would do certain things, even presentations online or Zoom, he would put me out there, and that wasn't my role. It was always his role.
mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, I didn't say much. I just thought that, okay, he's trying to get me to,
Yeah,
grow
yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
But then he moved to sitting on the couch just looking like
Sorry.
he wasn't involved in anything. He would just sit there. And when we would go to people's house and talk about what we do, he would sit in the corner, and that wasn't him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually the one that want to leave. Well, if I'm done, I'm ready to go. And this time, it was him. And so when I found out along with everyone else, and it started to make sense, not 100% sense, because if you're not going through it personally, it's still hard to comprehend. Depression and suicide. I still struggle with trying to understand what people go through when they're going through it, but I did see it firsthand, and so I can tell you 100% today that he's the person that I met initially, but during that time he was not the guy that I met at all. He was totally opposite.
Okay.
And so yeah.
Okay. So going back to Sunny. So you got the product.
Yeah. We got the products in, and there was some immediate relief, but I was still having the seizures. I was still, there was still a lot of things that I didn't understand. And at the time, what I really didn't know is that with epilepsy, with seizures, depression is a natural byproduct of epilepsy. And again, all of this is her and I are learning this together. We had at the time we had no exposure to this condition, and we're finding things out. And Pam is very very big on research and gathering information. And so we're finding things out. We're trying. We looked at the keto lifestyle. We looked at all that stuff, and as God would have it. I went to Mr. Ziegler's office because before he passed, Mr. Ziegler was literally my mentor for about 2 years until his passing, and I still maintain a very, very, very great relationship with his family and so on. So I went by there to catch them up on what was happening with Pam and I. And his daughter Cindy and his Lori, the lady who's worked with Mr. Ziegler for all these years, they told me about a gentleman by the name of Jim Gardner who worked with this. They weren't sure what it was. They just knew he was a part of this gym and this program that dealt with people with unique injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as God would have it, I didn't call Mr. Gardner. I didn't email him. I just showed up to the place. It was Tuesday, February 5th of 2019.
Mm.
I showed up to the place, and it just so happens that on that Tuesday, Mr. Gardner was at the facility. No, he doesn't work there. He's on the board of directors. But he happened to be in the facility that day. So I walk in and I say, hey, I'm here to see Jim Gardner. He happens to be there. We meet. And for 2.5 hours, we talked. I shared my story. He basically told me what it would entail to become a part of the program, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, okay, I went home. I told Pam about it. And I applied for to be in the program that same night. But what I did though that I think really really helped me was I started showing up there every single day. I think there was a time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pam. Wasn't there one day when I had a seizure up there and you had to come get me or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and we're going through this thing. But so the Adaptive Training Foundation basically is an organization that provides through physical fitness, right? Physical fitness is the foundation piece, a 9-week program of intense physical training for people who have unique adaptations. They don't like to say disabilities because you have people who are stroke survivors, multi-digit, amputees. You have spinal cord injuries. You have people with cerebral palsy. I was the first person with epilepsy to go through the program. We've had a few since then. And so they provide this training. But during that 9 weeks, with the foundation piece of physical fitness, there's also work done on the mental side, emotional, and to a certain extent, the spiritual component. The founder of the organization, his name is David Vobora. He's a former NFL player. Him and I, and it's a running joke now because before I got right when they were getting ready to accept me to the next class that was going to go through for 9 weeks, he called me into his office and he told me I had to get off social media. I was like, whatever, man. And then he challenged me to go get counseling for my mental health. This is important because beyond the very, very few friends that I had, there was not any male figure who was willing to tell me that I needed to go get help. Everybody was just sweeping it under the rug. I I know it was hard for Pam to watch this spiral downward, but to this day, I always tell David, thank you, because he was willing to tell me the truth. And he also told me this. He said, you have a gift, but you will never be able to give that gift to the world until you release that weight that you're carrying. And so I went and got enrolled in this program. It used to be called 22 Kill in honor of the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. It's now called One Tribe Foundation. I went through their stay the course counseling program, and what was beautiful about that is that my counselor, not only was he a psychiatrist, psychologist, whichever the one it is, but he was also a Christian. So we were able to have conversations in our sessions that were, yes, the scientific and the psychological, but we had some very, very deep spiritual conversations.
Mhm.
And I think if I hadn't done that, I would not have been able to 100% um, maximize what I went through in the program to now be on this side of it.
Okay.
And just as a caveat and an aside to anybody who's listening, this mental health thing is as real as if you break your arm. It requires treatment. Some people have to have the chemical treatment, which is the medications and all that. I never wanted to go down that route. Unfortunately for me, the 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 organization, Adaptive Training Foundation, they have a relationship with one of the top CBD companies in the country, and I started using their product, and that's when we started seeing the amazing improvement. Pam could tell you, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we were driving on this highway in Dallas called 635. We were going, I think we were heading home,
Yeah.
or what, we were heading home, and I was in the passenger seat, and I had a seizure in the car. She's trying to drive, and then she pulls over, and she actually gives me some of the CBD, and within a few seconds, it actually stopped the seizure.
Wow.
And that in and of itself is why I'm an advocate for cannabis therapy, because I know what it has done for me, but I've seen countless other individuals with brain trauma, pain, all these issues that it has helped. And again, here it is. Pam is forced into being caregiver, financial provider, and I'm fighting my way through this dark space. And then thankfully, ATF introduced me to a couple of things. They introduced me to archery, which is something that actually neurologically helps me relax. It's amazing. They introduced me to Spartan racing, which is in fact I work for Spartan, so I use endurance racing
Yes.
as part of my that's literally part of my therapy. And going back to what I said earlier, when the guys asked me how my wife deals with me traveling so much, and I want her to speak on this, because for me I think that one of the reasons she's okay with it is that she has seen the ugly alternative. Like, she has seen what life was before that. So, Pam, you want to speak on that?
Well, I'm okay with it because, we've had conversations prior to, and as long as you told me you would sit down when you felt like you wasn't feeling too good or felt something coming on, or made people aware around you of, what could happen, I was fine. And I trusted that you would do that. So for me, knowing that that's how you cope, to even, follow through with all the things that you've done in order to deal with what you're going through, makes me okay with your decisions to run those races, no matter. And I get a lot of people that tell me, Sonny, I need to sit down somewhere, or "You're doing too much."
They
And
seem like a family, Pam. They seem like a family.
yeah, it's people don't. I mean, everyone deals with things differently. Now, what I deal with that the same way as him, probably not. But that's who he is, and that calms him, that keeps him sane, and I'm all for it. It makes my life easier.
Both are
Uh,
amazing. You
the
are amazing.
hardest thing was I had never seen anybody have a seizure before. So when they described what he first went through at work, we was like, it wasn't a seizure. He probably just fainted. But then when the day we got into the argument and I went to the other room, I was getting ready to go take a walk, and I just heard tussling noises, like someone was in there with him.
Mhm.
That's what made me go run in there. And that was the scariest thing I had ever seen in my life.
Mm.
So the doctors had to let me know that it's scarier for me than it is for him, because his body is literally shutting down and resetting, but I'm seeing it happen. And so that was helpful. But then again, there's, even today, I have to, when he's home, my daughter makes fun of me because I tell her when I'm watching a movie, I hear it until I'm really, really asleep. But I think that over the years, I had to be conscious when we go to sleep, because I had to listen for him to make sure he's not having a seizure.
Yes.
And that's really scary. So, there was a lot of tired days. I was footing a lot of things. So the fact that he even acknowledges that I was the caregiver, and I really had to step it up during those times, because nobody would keep him on a job. Once he had a seizure, that was it. And I had to be prepared to leave work and hope my job would understand that I have to go now. And so that's what pushed me into entrepreneurship. Bless you. But we've come a very long way. We still have struggles, on top of a normal marriage. So we have the same marriage issues, but with the additional struggles of depression or the epilepsy, or a lot of the things. We communicate a lot, and so there are times when neither of us want to address it. But one thing I can say about us as a couple is since the beginning, we've always had those hard conversations with each other, even when we hurt others' feelings. For some reason, with us from the beginning, we were able to do that, and I think that's why we got this far. Yeah.
Good. Wow. So tell me about this epilepsy association.
Oh, the Epilepsy Foundation. Yeah. So I'm actually a board member with them, but I will say this. I was recently talking to one of the other board members about resigning from the board, and she asked me why. I said, well, I'm not as active as I would love to be, and then she corrected me. She said, you're active where you need to be, because my thing is, one of the things that I love about Pam is not one to waste words. She's like, okay, tell me what it is, let's get it done. And that's something in our time as a couple that I've adopted. Like, there's too much time wasting talking about certain things. I'm of the opinion that in order for people with epilepsy to get the things they need, in order for veterans to get the things they need, in order for adaptive individuals to get what's needed, like, we've got to stop just talking. We've got all these nonprofits with this dog and pony show, but there's no substance behind it, which is why I love ATF, because I can give you a list right now of individuals like myself who've gone through the Adaptive Training Foundation program, where the work is being done. We have Tyler Turner, who just won a gold medal for Canada in adaptive snowboarding. We have Jamie Blanick from Waco, who is training with the U.S. Paralympic team. I've done 33 endurance races since 2019 after having well over 500 seizures before I came to this organization. We have, Matt Brewer, who is on the U.S. Paralympic team right now, a double leg amputee that has gone through the program. And so for me, my thing is I need to be out here doing as opposed to just be on platforms talking, which is why I do these endurance races, because I want people with epilepsy to understand, listen to me. You are not limited to living an exciting, full quality life because you have epilepsy. You just have to find your path. Now, everybody doesn't have to do endurance races. Everybody doesn't have to do archery. But if you can find something that empowers you, that encourages you, that excites you, even with epilepsy, you can have an amazing life, right? And so when I was talking to her about resigning, she said, "No, you're where you're supposed to be. You're reminding those of us who don't live with the condition." And for her, her son has epilepsy. She's on the board, but it's because of her son. She said, "Whenever my son sees you doing your races or whatever, he is encouraged by that, and so he wants to play soccer. He wants to do everything." Even as a kid, knowing, well, yeah, I've got epilepsy, but I can still do cool stuff. And I think for me, with the Epilepsy Foundation, that's one of the things I love, is that it's not just about the dog and pony show, but it's about the impact. So they provide on their website tons of information on epilepsy and the condition and resources for families and all that stuff. But as a board member, they allow me to really live the message by continuously being out here and doing what I do, sharing my story, being a champion for people who may think, well, oh man, I've got this condition, I've got this disability, and life is over. And honestly, just to be 100% honest, I did think it was. I thought it was.
The doctors told you. The
doctors. Well, yeah. do we even want to discuss the doctors? I mean, because if going back to what Pam is talking about, remember it was like a list of things that they told me not to do, that I couldn't do, that I would never be able to do. It's amazing. And again, I'm not knocking any doctors. I'm not knocking any what they do. They've earned their right to make those statements. But especially me being a licensed naturopath, I think the holistic approach to healing is also what has helped me. So it's a combination of things. Pam has talked about the hardest thing with this all is the communication, because Pam has to trust, as she said, that I will be 100% honest when I'm not feeling well. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing for a man to do. It's even harder for the woman to trust it, because men, we're driven by ego, and that ego drives us to always want to prove something. We want to prove we can make more money. We want to prove we're stronger. We don't like asking women for directions because we feel like we always know where we're going. But that's our ego. And so Pam has to trust that when Sundiata walks out the door, if he is an hour down the road, because I drive everywhere now, and he is not feeling well, either I'm going to stop, or if it's that bad, I'm going to stop and I'm going to let somebody around me know that I'm not feeling well. That's important. And that's been a big part of my healing, because sometimes the opposite could create adverse effects when you have the helicopter spouse or the helicopter parent just like, no, don't do this, don't do this. Which is why I think so many people always tell Pam, Sundiata needs to sit down somewhere. But these people were not there when Pam had to be up in the middle of the night because I just had a seizure and she can't go back to sleep because she's scared I'll have one in my sleep. Or she has to leave work and I'm having multiple seizures, and and there's nothing you can do, because if you go to the hospital, they just have you waited out. They ask you how you're feeling, and they send you back home with a bill. That's how it works. So communication has been a big part of this. The fact that I am now doing things that I enjoy helps neurologically, like Pam said, because it removes the emotional and the mental struggle of living with epilepsy, right? The other thing that helps is we have some amazing children. Now, any parent will tell you, kids can sometimes drive you nuts. They will test your patience, right? But the thing that I've noticed, all of them, our daughter Jayla, who's at the house with us, my boys Jocelyn and Jamal, all of them, is that they throughout this all, I know it's hard for all of them. I know it's hard for them. Whether they say it or not, I can read the expression on their face. I can see the emotion. But the one thing I can say is, ever so often, all of them, they'll say something to me that just reminds me how blessed I am, how amazing they are. It's just just a word here, or hey, just even hey, how you feeling today? That matters. And when you have that, there's no way you can lose. There is no way that life can, until the good Lord calls me home. There's no way that life can stop me because of what I have with my family.
Very good spirit. Very good spirit.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know what else life could throw at Pam and I that has been as catastrophic as this, that we can't endure. You'd be hard pressed to find anything that'll shake our tree. And like she says, we have some hard conversations. I think I want your audience to take this away.
Yeah.
We have a rule, and that rule is we don't always have to agree, but there has to always be respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We can't go down that road of disrespecting each other at all, ever. So yeah, we're like any couple. We have a
disagreeing couple out there.
we're always butting heads, but see, people think that disagreeing with your spouse is a bad thing, though. Like, that's how you grow.
Yes.
Personalities
too.
Right. I grew up on an island. So my perspective and our school system was different. So my perspective of the world and people is totally different to Pam, who was born and raised in Dallas. You see, Dallas, Texas, in the United States, right? Her family dynamic is much different from mine, But that's an opportunity for both of us to learn. There were things that I had very hardline stances on. But what Pam has taught me is you've got to see perspective, because you can be walking down the street. This is another thing I want your audience to take away. That's very important.
Mm-hmm.
You can be walking down the street and you are in the front of a house and it looks magnificent. Pam could be on the back side of the house driving down the alley and it looks like a junkyard. And she's telling me, Sundiata, this house is garbage. And I'm telling her, no, this house is amazing. It looks great. But it's the same house. You know what's different is the perspective. And when people can understand the differences in perspective, because Pam is speaking to me from her perspective. So I have to now be willing to, okay, let me, even if I don't agree with it, look at it from her perspective. Yeah. That's how we're able to have these hard conversations. Because Lord knows it hasn't been, again, I will say this for the audience that has missed it. In a lot of ways, I haven't been what people would consider the perfect husband as far as being a provider. And then you add on top of that all the issues with losing my fingers and then the health challenges. But when you are able to have those hard conversations and work step by step, brick by brick, that's how the wall of Jericho was built, brick by brick, right? And you can have those hard conversations, even when you disagree, and still meet at the table. Yeah, You're going to be okay. It's not. I mean, it's not easy. Who wants to be told they're wrong? Nobody wants to hear you're wrong.
That's true.
Nobody
Wow.
does.
I'm telling you. Listen, guys, I just want to encourage you from the bottom of my heart. I don't know, but I see you guys going places and I see healing and restoration taking place. Yes, I do. I want to put a challenge out there to you. You can have a class, as you said you before when you started. You have so much to share. You didn't even get to go into the work that you do, Pam. I think we'll have to bring you back on. I've gone through and I've read up a little about you. You do your taxes and you all things like that.
Mhm.
I'm thinking that I need to invite you back to, or can you say something within the next 7 minutes? Give us a good idea of what you do.
Sure. I actually work with mostly with small business owners to assist them with growing their business, cash flow through tax planning and retirement. To sum it all up.
Okay. Wow, that was pretty quick.
I've worked
But
on.
I'm going to encourage you guys that you have so much going on. You need to be out there and let the world know. Let them know. Let them know. And I believe, I'm saying it again, I believe there is healing and restoration that's coming your way in the holistically, spiritually, physically, mentally, financially, all of that. Just hang in there. God never gives us anything more than we can bear. And there comes to a time that he says, okay, it is enough. You've passed the test. And I think you're getting there. And let me just address the fact that you're a veteran. We just celebrated Veterans Day a few days ago. To you and to all those out there who are veterans, we want to appreciate, just let you know that how much we appreciate what you've done for us. And we want to let you know that we really are thankful for all that you did and doing now. And also the month of November is the month when we highlight epilepsy, right? Month of
Yes.
November. Yeah.
Yes.
So we want to highlight that now and to let all those who are going through that struggle that you keep going. And I hope you've watched Sonny and listened how he has dealt with it. He hasn't sat down and look, he keeps going out there and little by little he's getting better. So as I would normally do, I'm leaving a thought again. It is said that life is a miracle and every breath we take is a gift from God. Don't wait another one. Don't wait for everything to be perfect before you decide to enjoy your life. This is Carolyn from Express saying bye and have a good day. Bye-bye.